Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexa Kasdan. I am the Executive Director at Pratt Center for Community Development. We're really excited to have everyone here today to talk about our new program, the Community Planning and Research Accelerator. So next slide, please. So today we're going to have about an hour together, and I'm just going to walk you through the agenda now. We're going to start with some welcome and intros and do an overview of the session. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Pratt Center. And then we're going to get an overview of this new program, CPRA, Community Planning and Research Accelerator. We'll talk a little bit about how we're going to select from the proposals. We're going to talk about whether this is right for your organization. And then we'll talk about some additional support that we're going to be providing for applicants. We'll then go over next steps and deadlines, and then we'll leave about 20 minutes at the end for questions and answers. And just one note, we will be recording this and we will send out the recording afterwards. We'll also be documenting the questions and answers, and we'll send that out as well. Next slide, thank you. So the goals for today are really to help you all understand whether this is the right fit for your organization to spend the time to put together a proposal. So you'll learn about the opportunity, what it includes, and then the selection criteria. So hopefully by the end, you'll be able to decide whether this is the right fit for your organization. Next slide, please. So I know we're in a webinar and we can't see each other, but we'd love to just know who's in the room, the Zoom room with us. So if you could just drop your name, your organization, and just where in the city you work. So that could be a borough, a neighborhood, it could be citywide. So just drop that into the chat. And while we do that, we're going to introduce the Pratt Center team that is here with us today that you're going to be hearing from today. So first, again, I'm Alexa Kasdan. I'm the Executive Director at Pratt Center, and I am going to pass it to Paula.
Hey everyone, I am Paula Crespo. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a senior planner here at Pratt Center. I'll pass
Hi
it to Tara.
everyone. Thanks, Paula. Hi everyone. I'm John Ray Sarapi. I'm the comms manager here at Pratt Center. I use he and pronouns, and it's good to see everyone. I'll pass it to Tara.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Tara Vivier, Senior Planner here at Pratt Center. It's great to see everyone as well. Pass it to Sylvia.
Hello, good morning. I'm Sylvia Morse, she, her, Director of Research and Policy at Pratt Center, and I'll pass it to Shantae.
Shantae, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shantae Ramsey, Director of Operations, she, her. I'll pass it off to Vanessa.
Hi, everyone. My name's Vanessa. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an urban planner and a consultant supporting the Pratt Center team on the CPRA.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you all for putting your name in the chat. And we're really happy, as I said before, to have you all here and your interest in the program. Can you go to the next slide, Vanessa? So before we get into it, just letting you all know the way we're going to do the Q&A, we're going to answer all the questions at the end, like I said, in the last 20 minutes. But if you have a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A function on the Zoom toolbar. You can see right here, there's this little Q&A icon. You just press that, this box comes up, and then you type in your question. And we'll be monitoring that throughout, and then we'll answer all the questions at the end. Depending on the number of questions, we may not be able to answer every single one, but we will, like I said, answer all the questions afterwards, and we will post the Q&A in an FAQ when we send around the webinar recording. So again, please use the Q&A function and feel free to type in questions as we go. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pratt Center for Community Development, and so are my colleagues in a moment, but next slide, please. Just for those of you that are not familiar with Pratt Center, we are a part of Pratt Institute. We've been around for 60 plus years, and our mission is to work with low-income communities of color for a more just, equitable, sustainable city. And we do that by partnering with community-based organizations. And we provide research, policy, planning, advocacy, and implementation support in those partnerships. Next slide, please. So we have 4 core issues, which are all intersecting and overlapping. So housing, climate, and economic justice, and then planning and land use. And like I said before, all of this work is done in partnership with community-based organizations on the ground, and we take the lead from those organizations in designing all of our projects. To the right, you'll see a couple examples of the sort of end products of some of our projects, a toolkit, a report, and you're going to hear from my colleagues in a moment about some examples of projects that we've done that focus on community-based research and community-based planning, which is the focus of this particular project, the CPRA. We do other work at Pratt Center, but for this particular project, for this particular new program, we are focusing on planning and research. Next slide, please. So before I pass it off to Vanessa, who's going to tell you more about this program, I just want to tell you a little bit about why we're doing this. So Pratt Center, like I said, has been around for quite a long time, and we've worked with a lot of community-based organizations, and we know that you all have the best ideas for planning and research in your neighborhoods and in your communities. And we also know that it's really hard to raise resources for these types of projects. So we wanted to have an opportunity to do an open process so that more community-based organizations that we haven't worked with at Pratt Center in the past could get an opportunity to work on one of these research or planning projects with us, and for us to be able to have more groups that we can work with and learn from as well. So we designed this program like we do everything else by listening to groups on the ground. We had focus groups and conversations with handfuls of community-based organizations to get their feedback. That said, this is the first time we are doing this particular type of program, so we won't have all the answers, and we're trying to be as transparent as possible in how we're doing this. And so we're excited to have you here and learn more. And I will pass it to Vanessa. Vanessa, you're on mute.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. Thanks, Alexa. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Community Planning and Research Accelerator. So now we're going to go over the opportunity, and the goal today is really to provide you an overview of what this initiative is and to help potential applicants understand if this is a good fit for your organization. As Alexa shared, this is the first year doing it. It's the inaugural CPRA. So we see this really as a learning process to refine also in the upcoming years. So now I want to talk about what is the CPRA. It's a holistic program across 4 pillars where organizations will first and foremost receive $15,000 in flexible support for their programs and operations. Also, organizations will get around 200 hours of technical assistance while they'll work directly with Pratt Center on developing out community-based research or planning. Third, there'll also be cohort learning with other CBOs that are in this program. And the purpose of this cohort isn't to be like heavy and onerous, but rather it's a real opportunity for groups to meet and connect with other participants so you can expand your network and your learnings. As Alexa shared, in designing this program, we did focus groups, and we learned from organizations that they want something that's light touch, it's generative with what organizations actually need in the moment, and just again, an opportunity to connect and learn from others. And then last, this is a real opportunity to build your relationships with the Pratt Center over the course of 12 months. So now I'm going to go over and dive into what is technical assistance for the CPRA. And it's you can categorize the technical assistance into 2 key opportunities, one being community-based planning and the other being community-engaged research. For the community-based planning, the Pratt Center sees this as a community-led visioning and planning opportunity to identify local priorities and help shape solutions with the residents, with the community leaders that you all work with on a day-to-day basis. That can take shape in terms of visioning workshops, getting land use and zoning analysis from the Pratt Center planners, getting support on large and small group facilitation, and also support on how to do community data collection. The second opportunity is community engaged research. And we see this as really the opportunity to co-design participatory action research that, again, responds to community and priorities on the ground and informs local action and helps organizations and residents take action based on your project's needs. This can show up in terms of helping you develop out broader, like, what is participatory action research? Help you design your research questions, your different methodologies and work plans for this PAR work. It's also an opportunity to build out the quantitative and qualitative research tools that you would use, such as surveys, interviews, or focus groups. It's also an opportunity to get data analysis, visualization, mapping, or demographic and economic analysis that you might not have capacity to do in-house. So that's the TA. Now I'm going to pass it to my colleague Sylvia to really elaborate more on how TA has looked with other projects the Pratt Center has done.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hi again, everyone. So one example of a community engaged research technical assistance project was our work with Riders Alliance on the Better Buses for Flatbush Avenue project. So Riders Alliance is a citywide grassroots public transportation advocacy group. And in their campaign to win better bus service and street redesigns on Flatbush Avenue, Riders Alliance aim to both organize bus riders and to demonstrate the economic and health impacts of bus service on those riders and their neighborhoods. So Pratt Center's technical assistance to Riders Alliance in this a little under a month-long community engaged research project included first designing the participatory action research project, which included developing and engaging a research advisory group made up of community members that Riders Alliance recruited, but we facilitated. And then we co-designed a survey for bus riders. So Riders Alliance strategy was to get the survey out there, not only online, but when they were canvassing bus riders waiting for the bus on Flatbush Avenue. So we really, even though we had a lot of learning goals, we needed to make sure that the tool worked in their campaign and organizing context, and it was something people could complete in 5 minutes. So we worked on developing that. Riders Alliance, again, was responsible for disseminating the survey, ultimately reaching over 1,800 responses, and then Pratt Center cleaned and analyzed the survey results. We also worked with them to engage small business owners through focus groups, which we designed and facilitated, and they secured space for and recruited participants for. Ultimately, we synthesized our findings in a report that we co-published with Pratt Center and Riders Alliance. And importantly, this research component was part of a longer campaign and their ongoing organizing. So the work was completed in 2024. And their organizing and advocacy continued. And most recently, if anyone saw the city and state's recent plan to improve bus service citywide, the Flatbush Avenue corridor has been included as a priority in that plan. And I will pass it over to Tara to give another example.
Hello. So we also did work with the Racial Impact Study Coalition, of which we're also a member. This coalition was created in 2019 as a response to displacement concerns that the community members and advocacy groups have had during several rezonings and other land use actions throughout the city. So the coalition advocated and worked towards legislation that would create data tools for community members and decision makers to understand the potential displacement and racial impacts of land use actions. This legislation was signed into law in 2021, which resulted in the creation of a public data tool, as well as requiring certain projects provide a racial equity report. Using data from this data tool to get a better understanding of how these projects might impact the surrounding community. So a few years after this legislation was passed, the coalition wanted to do some analysis to see how these tools were being used and what the data collected was showing so far. This project was actually done in partnership with Pratt Institute's Graduate Center for Planning and the Environment, with Professor Eve Barron and some students collecting qualitative data through interviews with community board members and elected official staff, and quantitative data using information from the public data tool and the racial equity reports. The Racial Impact Study Coalition assisted the project team by assisting in interviewing the different stakeholders and providing input on what kind of analysis they wanted to see in the final report. So we assisted in this analysis, breaking down the types of proposed projects by location and of the project's affordability. And when the qualitative findings were showing that there was really like a lack of outreach and training on how to use the reports, the coalition suggested that we include a case study to serve as an instructional guide on how to use the racial equity reports, which we created as a part of the final product. And after this report was released, we held a city council briefing to discuss the report's findings and recommendations so that city council could really assist us in advocating for better outreach and training for community boards on these reports.
Thanks, Tara. Great. Hi, everyone. So this is a project that we're actually currently in the process of wrapping up. We have been working with a community land trust located close to the Far Rockaway neighborhood in Queens. They are called the Real Edgemere Community Land Trust. And for the last few years, they have been in the process of acquiring several vacant lots from the city. And there's a particular one on Beach 43rd Street that you see in the photo here, that they brought us on to do some community visioning about. So essentially, Pratt Center designed and facilitated 2 community workshops to get community members talking about what they would like to see on the ground floor of a future building that's going to be on that site that the Community Land Trust is going to develop. The ground floor will be some sort of retail or community-oriented use, and the upper floors are going to be residential. So we designed and facilitated, again, 2 community workshops, got people talking about what their priorities would be for the ground floor of the site. And now we are creating a report, which will essentially be the final deliverable. It highlights a lot of the priorities that the community identified and also recommends a set of next steps and recommendations that the Community Land Trust should take as it plans for the future of the site. Next.
Great. Thank you, Paula. So now I'm going to go over the selection process and walk you through all the different facets of it. So really quickly, let's talk about who can and should apply. To be eligible, organizations must first and foremost be based in New York City. They should also be a 501c3, a nonprofit, or have a fiscal sponsor. Organizations also need to have at least 1 paid staff member on their organization. They need to also have a designated staff member to serve as the project lead. They need to propose a project that's aligned with Pratt Center's focus areas, so some of what Alexa shared earlier in the presentation. And lastly, organizations need to really be rooted in and accountable to the communities that have experienced historic disinvestment here in the city. In addition to eligibility, we have some priority considerations that we'll be giving to some organizations. Specifically, we're looking for organizations that are small or emerging community-based organizations to apply. Also, folks with limited access to flexible funding supports, we really encourage to apply. We also want folks that are new to the Pratt Center to expand the network that the Pratt Center works with. And also, organizations based in the Bronx and Staten Island are also strongly encouraged to apply. Participation includes a handful of commitments. The first is, this is a 12-month initiative where we're looking for organizations to complete their projects before September of 2027. Also, we expect organizations to really want and show up for designing out what their tailored technical assistance can look like. So collaborating and co-designing with the Pratt Center what that TA is. Also, I shared this, but I just want to reinforce it. We're really looking for active project leadership in this work. So what that means is having that one designated staff member at least to be there throughout the entirety of the program as the project lead and for also check-ins to share key milestones, updates on your work. We're also looking for folks who are interested in wanting to engage in a cohort and learn from other CBOs. Again, I want to emphasize this is light touch peer learning shaped by the cohort. So nothing will be done without the explicit need and desire of those in the cohort. And lastly, we want organizations that can share project progress and learnings along the way. So we know how funds are being used to advance your work, so we can share it out in the community and in the world. Now I want to walk through the selection criteria. And here we have 5 key areas that people will be assessed on and weighted on accordingly. The first is we're really looking at community need and leadership. The second is alignment with the CPRA's goals. The third is technical assistance fit. The fourth is feasibility and readiness to jumpstart those projects. And the fifth is organizational priority factors. So thinking about those folks that we want to prioritize from Bronx, Staten Island, et cetera, making sure that we're counting that in. So now I want to talk through community need and leadership. When we talk about that, what we're looking for is projects that have demonstrated a clear community need, challenge, or opportunity that you guys can harness. Also, we want organizations, again, that are rooted in and accountable to the communities they serve. And we want you to really showcase too how community members are helping to shape the priorities and decisions of your project along the way. The second criteria is alignment with the CPRA goals. So what we're looking for here is that we really want projects and organizations that are advancing social justice work here in New York City and building community power from the grassroots. We also want projects that address root causes and promote systems change. And we want organizations whose work can really align with the community-based planning and community-engaged research that the Pratt Center does. And that gets us into the third criteria piece, which is assessing technical assistance fit. So we're looking to see that there is a clear need and opportunity for planning and research support. And that Pratt Center staff, so folks on this call, can really support your work in a meaningful way and advance your project and expand and augment the capacities of your organization. We also want to see how TA outputs can really support your decisions and next steps in your project's work. Fourth, we want to make sure that we're supporting organizations that not only have a good idea, but it's feasible and it's ready to go. So we're looking for projects that have a realistic scope, timeline, budget, and milestones, and are ready to start at the beginning of the CPRA. We also want projects that can fit within a 12-month program period. And again, we want projects that have a designated project lead that has capacity to participate in the CPRA throughout the duration of the project. And last, I want to talk a little bit about the organizational priorities. So again, we're looking for organizations that are on the smaller side with budgets of under $2 million. We're also wanting to support folks that have limited access to funding and technical assistance and have a new or limited relationship with the Pratt Center. And again, folks that are based out of the Bronx, Staten Island, or other underrepresented areas that the Pratt Center is currently not working in are encouraged to apply. So let's just go through what that selection process is from application submission to notification. So applications are due on August 31st. From there, we'll gather all the applications and look at the eligibility of the organization. So please make sure that all your documents are in, you've answered all the questions, and that your organization meets the basic requirements. From there, we'll go into the proposal review, where applications will be reviewed by the Pratt Center Selection Committee, which is going to be a handful of Pratt Center staff that use the same rubric to assess all applicants. From there, we'll host a meeting to then hone in on finalists that will then be invited to interview with the Pratt Center. It'll be a short interview just to really expand and better understand your project and also what type of technical assistance can support you. And then from there, there will be the selection and notification. So Pratt Center will confirm the final cohort of 4 CBOs, and then that will be followed by next steps for the onboarding process. So now let's just talk a little bit about CPRA alignment. Strong projects are typically those that, again, respond to clear community need, that are showcased by residents, members, and local partners. We also want to make sure that strong projects center community leadership in the project you're proposing. And what that means is that community leadership residents are defining the priorities, shaping the work along the way, and informing the decisions. Also, we want to make sure that it's really crystal clear that there's a focused opportunity or question that you're looking to answer that both planning and/or research can help you address. And then that gets into strong projects also really will benefit from TA and collaborating with folks on this call. And projects that are ready to move from an idea or an early stage project into a clear, actionable next phase. So we really want to germinate these projects into something that has real action steps. And again, I've said it probably 3 times now, but I'll say it again. We really need it to be very clear that you have an active project lead that can engage throughout the duration of the 12-month partnership. So let's go next to what are the supports that the Pratt Center is offering to applicants and the next steps so you guys can get your applications in by August 31st. So in addition to these info sessions that we're hosting, the Pratt Center is also providing office hours for prospective participants. So what office hours are essentially just one-on-one sessions to help you all understand the opportunity better and answer the questions that you might still have. So if you have more questions or thoughts about this program after this information session, I strongly encourage you to apply to one of the office hours where we can help you clarify eligibility if you're a little unsure if you fit and what the expectations are. Also, we can help you answer any questions you have about the application or material. So if there's any tech issues that need to be troubleshooted, this is a great opportunity to talk to folks. And also, this is a great opportunity to really understand how technical assistance can help the project that you all have conceptualized. So that gets to the office hours aren't a space for Pratt to help you come up with a project. That's what you all will do in your application and showcase that. But it's a place to answer questions you might have around the CPRA, around TA, around tech. Again, these are not project design sessions. They do not accept your competitiveness, nor do they influence the selection process, and they are completely optional. Office hours are just 30-minute, up to 30-minute virtual appointments that you can sign up to. And they will be held from July 24th to August 7th. So you have different opportunities to sign up based on your schedule. Now I want to go over the timeline and the lead up to the application deadline. So today we're having our second information session. We had one on July 26th. Starting later this week, July 24th, all the way to August 7th, we'll be hosting a range of different office hours. On July 29th is the deadline to submit any questions you all might have to the Pratt Center to get answers. From there, our team is going to aggregate all the questions we've gotten throughout the process and then publicly post an FAQ on the website. So everyone has all the questions and answers to the different thoughts that you all have. On August 31st at 5 p.m. is the application deadline. So please get your application in by the 31st or before. And then after we go through the whole selection process in October, we'll kick off the CPRA and then it'll end September 2027. So thank you for, joining us today. And don't forget to get those applications in by August 31st.
Thanks, Vanessa.
So I'll pass it now to Alexa.
And just the next slide, please, and then one more. Okay, so we are starting the Q&A, and again, if you want to ask a question, please find the Q&A button on your toolbar, press it, type in your question, and we will answer them. So we have a few questions here, which I will answer now. And again, so to do a question, you put it in the Q&A, not in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so first question is, can organizations with over $2 million apply? And I think Vanessa did cover this. So you can apply if your organization has a budget over 2 million, but we are prioritizing organizations that have budgets less than 2 million. So you'll just take that into your chances of being selected. It'll depend on the mix of groups we get and all of the other factors, but we are prioritizing the organizations under 2 million. Second question, does the project have to be in the Bronx and Staten Island? Similarly, we are prioritizing projects in the Bronx and Staten Island, but they are not required to be in the Bronx and Staten Island. So again, it is a factor we are considering, but it is not the only factor. The next question is, will you help grantees right-size projects to fit the $15,000 budget and 200 hours of technical assistance? So you will be expected to include a budget in your proposal and propose a project that is the scope that you think you can do with the budget you propose. That said, we are having office hours and we're not going to help you design your budget or design your project. But if you have a specific question about whether something is the right size, the right fit, that is a question we can talk through and we can give you. We gave examples of projects that are about the same kind of, amount of technical assistance. So you can also think about those examples that we provided. Next question. We have a volunteer with a serious track record of developing kind of projects and is interested in being on a project lead. So again, we need to have a paid staff person be the project lead on these projects. We are, open to having volunteers also participate in your team, but we have made it a requirement for this first inaugural year to have a person that is a paid staff person be the lead. Clarifying question you mentioned is at first, is it the cohort aspect? So I think the person's asking about the cohort. So I think like Vanessa explained, we are looking to have a very light cohort model for this first year. We had, as I said, we talked to a bunch of organizations in designing this program. And, the organization said that They would love to have some sort of opportunity to meet other participants in the program and learn about their projects and troubleshoot, but they didn't want a lot of requirements for events and activities. So that is the ethos that we're operating under to design that. And like Vanessa said, we'll really develop the schedule for that once we select the participants and hear from them. A couple more questions about whether there needs to be a full-time paid employee. Yes, there needs to be at least one paid staff member on your organization's team. Okay, so I think those are the questions we have right now. I'm going to give it a few more minutes to see if anyone else wants to enter other questions. All right. If there are no other questions, we will wrap. And again, like I said, we will be putting out an FAQ that will have the answers to all these questions again in case people didn't catch them. And we will also have the questions that were asked in the previous webinar last week in addition. So there might be a question you didn't know you had, which we will answer as well. And like Vanessa said, there are opportunities for office hours if you want to have a little bit more of a short conversation about eligibility and requirements. You should sign up for one of those as well. So thanks again for attending, and we will send the slide deck, we will send the recording, and we will send the FAQs in a few days. So look out for that as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.